call it a daring move by Russia, and you may be right. Explosions have again hit the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, with air raid sirens blaring just as a delegation of 7 African leaders began a peace mission hoping to mediate on the war between Russia and Ukraine. After meeting with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, the group will head to St. Petersburg, Russia, for talks with President Vladimir Putin. There is more in this report.
The war between Russia and Ukraine seems to be loaded with pressure, cascading across nations and causing tension amid diplomatic strategies. Drones and missiles have been launched against Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, just as African leaders arrive on a peace mission. Kyiv's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, says the explosion was from Ukraine's air defenses and several missiles were destroyed. Ukraine's foreign minister says the missiles are a message to Africa that President Putin wants more war. The 7 African leaders from countries including South Africa and Egypt are to meet President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv before heading to Russia tomorrow for talks on a ceasefire and lasting peace. The initiative comes just as Kyiv launches its counteroffensive against the Russian invasion and intense fighting. NATO's defense ministers are meeting in Brussels, Germany, with major attention on effective plans on finding solutions. Meanwhile, in Russia, the St. Petersburg's International Economic Forum is taking place, with President Vladimir Putin expected to make the keynote speech. The war between Russia and Ukraine is still creating difficulties for world economies.
More on the lingering war-setting world leaders and on diplomatic pressure. I'm now being joined by a senior fellow of the Potomac Foundation, New York City, in the United States of America, Dennis Kirak. Thank you so much for joining us on World Now. First and foremost, General Milley mentioned that the Ukrainian counteroffensive is a difficult and violent fight that will come at a high cost. Can you provide some insight into the challenges Ukrainian forces are facing and the potential cost they might incur?
I'm so sorry, but I'm having trouble hearing you. There is some problem with connection.
Right, I was asking whether you can.
Please? Yeah.
Should I take the question again?
Yes, please.
Yes, I was asking whether you can provide some insight into the challenges Ukrainian forces are facing and the potential costs for the potential costs they might incur.
Well, if we're talking about the counteroffensive, I think over the last few days there were a lot of assessments of international analysts that this is what is happening now is a preparatory phase, and that in this preparatory phase, Ukraine is doing quite well. So, of course, Russians are putting fierce resistance, and no one was expecting that it's going to be an easy undertaking. But because simply, if Russia loses this battle, it can lead to a chain of events that will definitely that Russia loses the war. So. A lot is at stake for Putin, and he's doing what he's doing. But today's actions, shooting missiles when African leaders are in Kyiv, are personally for me are just outrageous. It's I don't know, shows completely for what Russia is and for what Putin is. So, I'm not sure that the suggestions and the proposed plan by African leaders make sense after today's attack. I'm sorry for that.
Right. But then with Chechen, the fighters reportedly deploying to the Belgorod region to prevent attacks from pro-Ukraine Russian partisan groups. How might this development impact the dynamics of the conflict and looking at the potential implications for Ukraine's counteroffensive?
Well, it's hard to predict military tactics of various parties if you don't know the actual, situation on the battlefront. So any analyst that is going out there and saying that he knows how things will unfold is just simply, an overstatement, because all the information is only from open sources, and the military campaigns are everything but about the open sources information. So we'll see. I mean, the battlefront is quite large, so there might be different unexpected situations happening not in favor of Russia. I think everyone's seen by now that Russia is not able to perform in offensive operations. In defensive operations, they've also performed not that well in Kharkiv and Kherson. That promotes, some sense of optimism for the West and Ukraine. But again, it's not going to be an easy undertaking. Of course, it's war. It's just a lot of human suffering.
Yeah. So looking at what Secretary Austin said, he mentioned that the war in Ukraine is a marathon, not a sprint. Could you elaborate on what he meant by this statement?
Well, I think the meaning is quite simple, is that no one should expect, breakthrough results immediately. I mean, that was kind of understandable from the very beginning, especially now. It doesn't look like Russia will give up really easy, but for Ukraine and for the West, there is no way back. Because if Russia wins, it's a collapse of the whole European security framework. And, Eastern European countries are quite afraid that they will be next.
So very quickly, before I let you go, as the Ukrainian counteroffensive is still in its early stages, could you help us provide an overview of the potential decisive battles that lie ahead, looking at exactly what factors will determine the success or failure of Ukraine's campaign to retake territory from Russia?
Sure. So, as I've already mentioned, the front is quite large, so it's hard to predict on which directions actually, the offensive will take place. However, it's not that hard if you look on the map of Ukraine to understand that the key priority is taking the Crimea back, and we kind of Ukraine already announced that that would be, the key priority is liberating all territories. So it's hard to predict the order of events, and again, only the general staff of Ukraine knows what is going to be, how it's going to unfold. But the push will be massive for sure. Ukraine has been preparing for this for around a year now. Of course, Russia has been preparing as well. But hopefully, with the quality of Western equipment and training, Ukraine, and with how Ukraine has been able to perform before, this quite big creativity and ingenuity of our troops.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah.
Right.
Those are the decisive factors.
Right. Because of our time, that's actually a convenient point to, put this interview. A senior fellow of the Potomac Foundation, New York City, in the United States of America, Dennis Girak. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.